On November 12, 2022, about 1:22 p.m. Central Standard Time, a Boeing B-17 and a Bell P-63 collided in flight while performing in the Wings Over Dallas Air Show. The air show was put on by the Commemorative Air Force at the Dallas Executive Airport in Dallas, Texas. The air show was directed via radio communications by the air boss, who stood on a set of air stairs near the center of the airport, giving him a clear view of the flying display area. The crowd was positioned on the ramp adjacent to runway 1331. The airplanes were to fly past the crowd along show lines that were 500 feet and 1,000 feet away from the crowd. The airplanes in the air show were all historic former military airplanes. They were organized into a bomber group and a fighter formation. The bomber group was led by the accident bomber, a Boeing B-17G Flying Fortress called Raiders or Texas Raiders on the radio. The B-17 was followed by a B-24 Liberator, an SB-2C Helldiver, one B-25J Mitchell, and a second B-25J Mitchell. The trailing B-25 was not broadcasting position data. The fighter formation was led by a P-51D Mustang called Gunfighter on the radio, followed by a P-51C Mustang, and the accident fighter, a P-63F King Cobra. A revenue flight in a Boeing PT-17 was also being directed by the air boss and landed on runway 31 just before the accident. The PT-17 was called Quebec on the radio. The airshow performance relied on real-time directives from the air boss. The air boss preferred not to assign altitudes and expected the pilots to maintain separation visually. During the airshow, the fighters generally flew higher than 1,000 feet above the ground, and the bombers generally flew below 1,000 feet. However, during the final maneuver, the fighters descended to gain speed to cross in front of the bombers as directed. The following animation will combine the recorded radio communications and the Global Positioning System-based ground tracks. Altitude above the ground is shown next to the legend for the two colliding airplanes. The animation begins in the middle of the airshow a few minutes before the collision.
Fighters, you can walk your way up to the B-17. I'm going to break y'all out after this. You're going to end up breaking left. So you're going to follow the bombers to the right 90 out, and then you're going to roll back in left and be on the 500-foot line if y'all want to set up an echelon for a break so y'all can get in trail.
Okay, say again for the fighters, that was not clear.
Fighters, go echelon right. Go to echelon right.
Okay, fighters, echelon right.
Okay, B-24, if you can give me a couple of inches and close the gap, I'd appreciate it. B-17, let's keep the turn a little flat for me. And just a little bit. When you come back through, you're coming through on the 1,000-foot line.
Here's Roger.
American fighters should be in a right turn. You're going to follow the bombers out on a right 90 turn, and then I'm going to roll you back in front of them. I need to drop it down to the deck, runway 31, clear to land.
Clear to land down to the deck, 5
There you go, B-17. Yep, gentle, flat, roll it around, 1,000-foot line.
Foot line for Raiders.
Fighters, roll it back to the left. Lead, fighter lead, roll it back to the left, and y'all get in trail.
Okay, fighters in trail.
Yep, and gunfighter, look out your left side and find the B-17.
See the 17.
Yeah, there you go. Roll it back to the left. I want you to get in front of the bombers. I want you to come through on the outside edge of the runway.
Okay.
Wind check now. Winds are estimated 330 at 12 gust 18. Nice job, fighters. You're coming through first. That will work out. B-17 and all the bombers on the 1,000-foot line. B-17, you got the fighters in front of you off your left. Nice job, fighters. Come on through. Fighters will be a big pull up and to the right.
The following is a video taken from the area of the crowd that starts with the B-17 and the P-63 about 4 seconds before the impact. The left bank of the P-63 obscured the pilot's view of the B-17. The B-17 pilot likely did not see the P-63 as it came from behind the B-17's left wing. All 5 people on board the B-17 and the pilot of the P-63 were fatally injured. The National Transportation Safety Board determined that the probable cause of the accident was the air bosses and airshow event organizers' lack of an adequate pre-briefed aircraft separation plan for the airshow performance, relying instead on the air bosses' real-time deconfliction directives and the see and avoid strategy for collision avoidance. Also causal was the diminished ability of the pilots to see and avoid other aircraft due to flight path geometry, view obscuration by aircraft structures, attention demands associated with the airshow performance, and the inherent limitations of human performance. Contributing to the accident were the lack of Federal Aviation Administration guidance on developing plans and performing risk assessments that ensure the separation of aircraft during air shows, and the lack of Federal Aviation Administration requirements and guidance for recurrent evaluations of air bosses and the direct surveillance of their performance. We issued 7 new safety recommendations to the Federal Aviation Administration, the International Council of Airshows, and the Commemorative Air Force. We recommended that the Federal Aviation Administration and the International Council of Airshows work together to establish standard operating procedures for airshow event organizers and air bosses. These procedures would include controls to ensure aircraft remain deconflicted, a safety risk assessment for each show, and a debriefing after each show that includes feedback to the Federal Aviation Administration and the International Council of Airshows. We also recommended that the Federal Aviation Administration and the International Council of Airshows work together to develop standardized, unambiguous terms to ensure that directives from air bosses are clear and brief. We further recommended that the Federal Aviation Administration require recurrent air boss evaluations, that they provide guidance for Federal Aviation Administration inspectors who evaluate the performances of air bosses, and that they require Federal Aviation Administration inspectors to conduct direct observation of air bosses and provide feedback during the airshow debriefing. Finally, we recommended that the Commemorative Air Force use Federal Aviation Administration guidance on safety management systems to establish a safety risk assessment process for their unique airshow operations, which includes serving as an event organizer, participating in air boss-directed performances involving multiple dissimilar aircraft, and ensuring the safety of revenue passenger rides. If enacted, these safety recommendations will prevent similar accidents from happening in the future. All of the safety recommendations from this investigation and their status can be found on ntsb.gov using the associated recommendation numbers. For additional information on this investigation, including the final report, the docket of supporting reports, and the safety recommendations issued, visit ntsb.gov and search for the accident number CEN 23MA034.